So I think the first pitfall is that all too often franchisors jump in thinking that they just need to sell franchises because, and a lot of this depends on the support and advice and guidance that they've been given in setting up the franchise in the first instance. So, it's crucial to get that right at the beginning. Unfortunately, not everybody who's providing advice is giving necessarily the right advice, and not everybody actually has the lived experience that we're talking about here. So, if you're starting a franchise right at the beginning, you want to ensure that you are starting it in a way which means that you are absolutely ready and prepared to be able to build a franchise that is going to stand the test of time.
Cutting corners early on, I think, is going to sow so many seeds of trouble, isn't it? And making concessions as well.
Yeah, and those, like I said, this is not for me to criticise. This is just to share the lessons that I've learned, because either cutting corners or actually not even having the franchise acquisition fee at the right level. I see this all the time, whereby people think, well, it needs to be cheap for people to afford it so I can sell it. But if having it so cheap means that you cannot provide the right level of support that a franchise partner needs, the outcome becomes inevitable. The franchise partner is highly likely to fail, and the franchisor is highly unlikely to make any generate any profitability from that franchise partner, and that relationship is almost destined to be adversarial from the outset. So, but the solution to that is about attracting the right franchise partner. We use the term magnetizing. You want it to be like a magnet whereby people are drawn to you as opposed to something I'm going to sell to them. And that again comes back to that having, so we talked about strategy and having the right strategic plan. This part is having the right franchise recruitment strategy, and the right systems and processes in place. I mean, the whole franchise model ecosystem is built on systems, processes, things that can be replicated. But again, I see franchisors making huge mistakes that they don't realize that they're making. But again, what I can say from experience is that having the wrong franchise partners in the network, you will spend 80% of your time on 20% of the people who are.
Well, it's like getting married too quickly, isn't it?
Again, 100%. And there's plenty of analogies around, the franchising sector for years about this being like a marriage, and very often without a prenup.
With no prenup, yeah.
But that again, go back to the psychology. What happens when we feel trapped in anything in life? And if you're in a 5 or 10 year franchise agreement, whatever it is, things are not working out. You're hemorrhaging money. Your partner perhaps, who was never fully bought in, is sitting in the background saying, "Hey, I told you so." It's devastating. It is devastating, and that's where the fight or flight mechanism kicks in on steroids. But all of these things, whilst nothing is you can never say anything is 100% guaranteed. But a lot of what I'm talking about absolutely can be avoided. It absolutely can, and I mean, it's well known in the business world, isn't it, that actually sometimes we've got to slow down to speed up. All too often, franchisors rush in to even sometimes when the gut feeling is telling them this isn't right, and yet somebody's sitting with, 20, 40, £100,000. They're sitting with that saying, "Yep, I'm good to go. I've got the money, and I want to do this." And I've been there where I've refused people. We've refused people. We put systems in place to make sure that we avoid wherever possible making those kind of mistakes. But when you position your brand to attract high caliber franchise partners whose ambitions align with yours, you create a culture of growth, commitment, focus on long-term profitability. That's the stuff that will create an environment whereby franchise partners will seek you out. Particularly high-performing franchise partners, because if you don't have these things, high performers will smell that a mile off, and they won't come on board. So all of these things are self-fulfilling prophecies, but So that I guess the key here, in this step of the process to build a successful, scalable franchise, you cannot skimp on getting that franchise recruitment strategy right. And as with all these things, whether it's franchise recruitment, strategic planning, coaching, mentoring, I genuinely believe that if you want to go somewhere, find someone that's gone there before. And I don't mean that's all about me. If it's not me, that's absolutely fine. There's other people who have lived experience as well. But
if you get it wrong, it's so hard to undo, because you've got to wait 5 years at least for the renewal to come around. Or if you get your territories wrong, then they're kind of locked in for quite a long time. There's so many problems that I think you can create for yourself.
100%, and these can be painful problems to solve for sure. Again, having said that, I believe in the principle that if we've made a mistake as a franchisor, it is unethical to just blame the franchise partner in that process. In the same way that interdependence means that you share in the benefit, interdependence means that you should also share in the pain. And if you've got it wrong, and there is, if there is no way back, then in that instance, then finding a way to have an amicable exit is actually the right thing to do. And but again, that comes back to making sure that you've got the right set of values in place within the organisation to begin with, and that you avoid pocket first behaviours, which we all will have had times that we've displayed pocket first behaviours because we're human. But that isn't going to build you a long-term profitable franchise business.
I think you're better defined by what you say no to than what you say yes to.
I would agree with that. But that's difficult. It's a difficult thing to do, and I don't take that lightly. But one of the things that we did very early on, but having gone through the pain of some of this stuff, was we put a process in place whereby decision making was actually part of the franchise team's remit. So it wasn't just the franchise recruitment manager saying this guy, this girl, or this person is great. We actually assessed them as well, and in that process, it wasn't a case of necessarily saying no, but what we learned and what we recognised was being able to identify where individuals needed very specific support that differed. And that's, sometimes a lot of franchisors make the mistake of, here's the process, here's the onboarding, and everybody goes through a sheep dip process and comes out the end. And then we wonder why, actually, that didn't work particularly well, because, do you know what? Every single person is unique, and they are coming to this with their own unique set of skills, experiences, etc. So it has to be tailored.